Perfect. Welcome, everyone. I am super excited to be here today. I have a special guest, Miss Whitney Walker, that we're going to be talking about so many things with. And for those of you that don't know me, I mean, you're watching my Facebook Live, but I'm Alicia Sweezer. And for those of you who are going to be listening or watching later who can't attend live on the YouTube or any of the podcast platforms, thank you so much for joining in. And I am super fortunate because Whitney and I connected over a couple of different things. And yesterday, I recorded an episode for her fabulous podcast that we're going to talk about. It's called Women Waken. And so now we are going to get to know Whitney. And I am super, super thrilled about this. And we got a couple of special things. She's going to pull a card. We're going to go all kinds of places. And the first thing I wanted to do is do a little introduction for Whitney so you know who she is, what she does, and then I'll let her kind of expand on that. So, Whitney is a licensed marriage and family therapist who specializes in addiction, eating disorders, trauma, and spirituality. You know how we love to combine all of the things to make our superpowers. She also works as a recovery coach and a spiritual guide. She incorporates spiritual concepts into her work, including the return of the divine feminine to our world and moving from a place of fear to love, releasing self destruction and rejection to embrace unconditional love and unconditional self-love and acceptance. These ideas form the concept of Women Waken, her business and vision for the future. Whitney created the Women Waken podcast, a holistic guide to wellness and abundant self-love, along with her accompanying YouTube channel. So please check it out. I'm gonna have it all in the show notes, but subscribe, like, follow, do all of the things because she is absolutely amazing. So without further ado, Miss Whitney is here. And Whitney, besides all the things I just said, tell us a little bit about yourself, anything that you'd like to include.
Hi, Alicia. Thank you so much for having me on your live.
I'm super excited. Thank you so much for being willing to do it.
Yeah, we had so much fun yesterday.
We did. And I would tell you if she did, I mean, like she asked the most perfect questions. We talked about animal communication. You all know that that's what I do. And all the things that I want people to know, like these are the specific questions or these are the topics in a session. She hit every single one of them, from how do you know like they don't like your boyfriend to these other lifestyle choices, or oh my gosh, end of life, and the challenges that we come into. So like I said, please check out all of like the podcast or YouTube because she really, really is an amazing human being. And I'm super fortunate to know her now.
Thank you. Well, yeah, I mean, my wide-ranging questions was because of my personal experience. I mean, I have an animal who's basically my life companion for 12 years. So I didn't really think until we sat down to the interview, I was like, oh, that's really cool. She does this. But as you explain more about your work and the extent of how you communicate, I was like, okay, well, how much can you learn from them? How much can you get? And I was like, well, I've always wanted to know about this, my dog who grumbles and does this and that and the other thing. And you're like, what are they thinking? Right? Like some
Mhm.
people I bring over to the house and she just goes crazy, and other people so you always want to know, right, what's going on. So it was really fun.
It was really fun. Um, so one of the things that, well, there's so many because we were chatting before and I was like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. And I want to do this and I want to do that. So Whitney had the fabulous idea of pulling a tarot card to get us started today. So,
Well, I actually like to do that at the end. So I
oh, you
find
like
like
to do it at the end? Oh, okay.
because tarot's like a good way to wrap it up, like depending on what we talk about or what comes up, it gets people thinking. I think they're more prepared and ready for a card. So I like to keep that for the
Okay.
end.
That's cool. Nope, I do that. Look, for me, I do my stuff in the beginning because it's like, what do I need to know for this? And then I always do one at the end also. So I love that. Okay, so one of the things besides all, she's a therapist, the spirituality, spiritual guide. One of the other things I learned about her, she's actually a nomad. So that's where we're going to start because I think it's going to come into some very cool conversations. So tell us everything. Tell us like how you got the idea, what it's like, the changes it's made in your life, the experiences of being a nomad.
Yeah. So 3 years ago on this day, I was sitting in my 300 square foot studio in Palo Alto, California, which is very expensive, even just for a converted garage, 300 feet. And I'd been there for 3 years. Three seems like a relevant number. Three, three, three. Um, and I had started my own private practice. So I'm a therapist, as I shared, and I also had begun my spiritual awakening. So my private practice began like a year after I'd started to awaken, and that really accelerated through 2020 to 2021. So I was sitting at my desk and I was going into my fifth client of the day on Zoom, and I thought, gosh, I spend so much, it's so great to work for myself and my practice is growing. It's great to have clients, but I am just sitting at the desk all day. I'm just sitting in and all I have is my computer and my desk. I was like, I could do this anywhere. Like, I don't have to be here. And I got up to go to the bathroom. And Alicia, you and I actually touched on during my interview of you yesterday about some of the clairs, like clairaudience or clairvoyance or clairsentience feeling, claircognizance, clear knowing. But I heard clear as day, which is clairaudience. I heard before the end of the year. And I was like, what? What is that? And it was just clear. It was like, you leave before the end of the year. So it was this time of year, it was October. And so I thought, or no, I heard this in August. And so I thought, I should do it. And so for the next 2 months, I made a plan, started getting rid of my stuff. I put a few things in storage at my parents' house. And then October 20th of 2021, I hit the road and I have been without a home base for 3 years now and traveled to 49 of the 50 states.
What an amazing, I mean, that alone is an amazing accomplishment, let alone the process. Like, I have a friend who did some of the nomad stuff, and just having the conversations with her of getting ready and when she started and that sort of thing, it is, when people use the word adventure, it really is an adventure because there's so much unknown. There's so much out of your control, which for anyone who has any control issues, right? Like, you're like, oh my God, what? If anyone has any trauma around shelter, right, and having any homelessness in their life, or financial constraints that make that, like, you combated all of that, like every single one of the things. Because as humans, right, even though so long ago we were nomads, we are very much like my house, like, we're so security based. And I
Yeah.
think it's amazing that you were like, I'm gonna do this completely different.
Yeah. And I think it's a gift that, and it was a part of my spiritual path and awakening was I just knew that I was supported. I just knew. I knew that I was on my path. And I personally believe that once you're on your spiritual path, things will open up for you. Of course, there's always challenges because you don't grow and you don't evolve, you don't change without challenges. However, challenges are just part of it. They just help you, but it's not going to derail you per se. So I just kind of knew. I was like, this is not going to be easy. It's going to be stressful. It's going to be hard. And it was at times, but I just knew I had to do it. It was just
Mhm.
like this force within me, which I would call my soul's emphasis, the emphasis of the soul. They say that the emphasis of the soul is always correct. So whatever is just like bursting out of you, it's like you almost feel yourself pulled, like you just can't not do it. It's because your soul is like, yes, this is what you came here to do. Yes, yes, yes. I'm picturing, and you'll appreciate this, like a dog when they're like, they see another dog and you're like, no, like pulling the leash. That's what your soul does when it's like feeling, it's like, yes, this is the path. Let's start on it. And that's what I felt. And I just knew. I was like, no matter how hard it might be to believe that everything's going to come together, I just know. I know I'm being guided somewhere and I have to do this. Because people were like, are you really just going to go do? And also, it was only what, like a year and a half into the pandemic. So it was like, you're really going to go and just traverse the country. And I said, yes, I'm going to do it. So yeah, I mean, and also it's funny because I'm a Virgo, so control is big to me, like in different situations, I'll start and people will be like, hey, can you just chill out? You don't have to, well, we were supposed to do this at this time. We're supposed to, hey, can you relax? But I also am I'm kind of a, um, what's the word? Like not a conundrum, but when somebody's like two things at the same time, enigma, in that I also kind of love surrendering control, where it's like, I don't know where I'm going to end up next week. I just have to see. I don't know where I'm going to be guided to go. Because this whole time being a nomad has been a surrender experiment in terms of I will make plans, but I'm also surrendering to how they might change unexpectedly and take me. And I'm just going to trust that it's taking me where I'm meant to be at certain times. And something I've really come attuned to is the idea that, the earth is a being just as we are. It's a living thing as a whole. And it has different centers of energy, just like we do the chakra system. They say the earth has 7 chakras. One of them is in California at Mount Shasta. If anyone's heard of Mount Shasta, it's a very powerful portal of spiritual energy. I've been there several times, get a lot of downloads, a lot of inspiration. But just in general, like even if it's not a chakra, there's just different places where there's different sources and concentrations of energy on the planet. And I think I'm being guided to these different spots, almost like touchstones where you can go and it helps you kind of tap into ancient wisdom, higher wisdom, inspiration. And I've just found that to be true through my travels.
And it's absolutely true. Like that, I love that you're speaking to it, because it's one of those things also for me of like when I go someplace, how does the energy feel? How does it, because I do talk to the planet. Like that's one of my specific things is I talk to her all the time. And even from when I was a little kid. And there are times when you go places, like people are always like, oh, you're gonna move. I was like, I'm originally from Michigan. All my family's back there. I love them. And it's like, I can't live there. Besides, I don't like the cold anymore, but energetically, it is so not a match. And there's a
It is
lot of
beautiful in the
times.
summer. I was there. I've been there a few times, one time during the fall, one time during the summer. It's the lake is gorgeous during the summer.
It is. The fall is my favorite time where you get the sweatshirt and the shorts. Like that was always my favorite time. We don't really have fall here in Arizona. Like it literally goes from 100 and you were like, it's October, it's still 105 today. It's all right, it's fine. But there is that place of and the world is changing and people are becoming more aware. So they're starting to pay attention to that sort of thing. But they don't always understand that it's like no, this is just not a place you're meant to live in. Like I have one client, she was like same thing, she's like I don't know, but I know I'm supposed to move north. She's like Arizona doesn't feel good to me, it hasn't for a couple of years. And she was like I think it's Montana. We worked through it, she's got dogs, cats, and she's in Montana now. And she's like I'm just gonna figure it out, but I feel so much better.
Yeah.
And so it's these energetic, and I love that you're following that. I love that you're following it. It's one of the things I teach, but it's like, that's how we get to live our life. Like it feels, and like you said, doesn't mean it's easy, doesn't mean it's comfortable. And it's what our soul is pulling us to do. And I love that you're doing that.
Yes. And this makes me think of, okay, so I believe that humans are meant to live more like that, as sort of more fluid and more exploratory and not, there's a time and place for community and village. However, I don't think we're meant to be as locked into place as we make ourselves. And this reminds me of the fact that just as you communicate with animals, the whole planet, but also every little ecosystem, the forest, nature is trying to give us messages. And I do think that a lot of the messages is you are free and you don't have to live this way. Because humans have really decided like this is what life is and you're supposed to do it this way. And you pick a home and you stay there no matter what, even if it doesn't feel good anymore. You chose it, you commit to it, you get a job, you stay in it. Even if you don't like it anymore, you got to make money. That's what matters most to your stability. I'm not saying these things don't matter. However, we've put them above our soul, I would say, in terms of, I think attending to your soul is the only thing that matters, truly. Um, and I know that I'm very privileged to be able to live the way I do. However, I made a lot of concessions and changes to do it. You know, like not everybody, even if they had the ability, would do what I'm doing. But my point is, I think that if we listen more to the messages that are all around us, we would all collectively be like, wow, we can create life and how we live it any way we want. And we can play with it more. And we can do things that are more conducive to our spiritual growth and our soul growth. And for me, I feel like I jumped on that path and it's been like a amazing ride, but like such a, a smooth ride, even though it's turbulent, if that makes sense. Kind of like a roller coaster, right? Like roller coasters are a blast, but you're on the track, right? You're on the track. You're gonna be fine. There's ups, there's downs. It's wild, crazy, but spirit's got you, and that's how I feel. And another thing is that you spoke of your friend who felt like she needed to leave. Well, I've had to listen very closely because I'll be guided to go somewhere. The first place I was guided to go for a longer term was Bend, Oregon. Last year, I'd gotten back to California. That's a whole other story. I got sick on my first leg of my nomadic travels, had to go to my home state for a while, bounce around Northern California areas. And then I was told to go. It was like, nope, you're done. And it kept coming back to Bend. And I was like, okay, I'm going to Bend, Oregon. And I went there, and it's, if anybody's been there, it's like this oasis in our country. It's like this beautiful place that has so many different natural wonders to offer and outdoor activities and adventures. And I was like, cool, I'm staying. This is my place. I could make this work. I could be here. As soon as I declared that, bam, I got a message that was like, nope, this is not your forever place. You cannot stay here or you will be forced to leave. And I was like, whoa, okay. Um, so I ended up, and then I was told to come here. And I was like, why would I, New York, upstate New York? Like, what am I going to do there? I don't know anything about it. I didn't even know it existed. You know, most people only think of New York City, but there's something about the energy here that I needed. And now I've been told, okay, done here. Now I'm headed your way to
Which
Arizona.
I'm super excited about. I know she's going to be here next month. So we're going to actually meet up
Yeah.
and get to meet each other in person. And I'm super interested of, I mean, I'm not going to say the things that like I've been told about your trip because that's for you to figure out when you get here. Um, so I'm not allowed to say, otherwise I totally would tell you. Uh, it'll be interesting to see where you go because we have we have Sedona, we have Tucson, Flagstaff, we have so many Native American places. Like Arizona really is full of historical, energetic, spiritual places. And so I'm excited for what you experience when you come here.
Me too. Me too. And I'm staying open. I've been to several cities in Arizona. I like Flagstaff. I love Sedona, of course. However, I know that when I came to New York, I didn't know where to go. And because I only knew one town, which is Saratoga Springs, which is where I did end up staying, which is a beautiful little place. Also a very, has long history of being, of healing, established way back in the 1700s, a lot of history to it. Anyways, but when I first came here, I didn't know. I kept it open. Like, where do I stay? And of course, out of nowhere, somebody I knew called me and said, hey, my friend owns a cabin upstate New York and their tenant has to leave next week. Do you want it? So I was like, okay. So I'm just going to do the same thing where because I try not to be too attached. I want to go to Sedona first, and I might do that just to like get into the state. But I know sneaky little spirit will have a way of showing me like actually like an opportunity will come up or a person to go see, and I'll go there and be like, oh, look at this apartment is available, it's furnished, it allows dogs. It'll come together.
Right. Yeah. And I love that you uh, are listening to those messages. As both spiritual teachers, it's one of those things that we get to guide people. We do it ourselves, and then we get to help people with their awakenings. We get to support them. And like, no, it's like you're saying, you get to choose again. Like we're so taught of like, I've chosen this job, I have to commit to it. And there's this sense of like, right, commitment is important, like being in integrity for ourselves. And that changes over time. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean that you don't get to choose again. Other people are not always comfortable when you choose again because of their own feelings around security and comfort and commitment and all of that kind of thing. And but the truth is particularly since the pandemic and everybody shut down, one, there was these amazing things happened, right? Where people connected more with their family, where they spent more time doing things instead of just in traffic and running around and all of that kind of busyness that we think is what fulfills us. And the other side is it also really locked people in to being even less nomadic, right? Even into like less trying new things. So it's really this, opposite thing that happened with the pandemic. And I love that you're showing people that you can choose again. You can follow the energy. You don't have to be stuck. And also generationally, right? Like our baby boomers, like it was very much you get a job in the factory, you get your house, you get a job wherever. And like this is what life looks like. And then as our generations are changing and our millennials or Gen Zs are, they're like, no, they're really battling against these kind of ideas, which is great. And you're living that as an example. And I think it can be really, really helpful for people to know that and to follow
Thanks.
you.
Yeah, I love sharing about it. I love telling people about it. I talk about it a lot on my podcast, kind of following along with my journey. And I also just love that I'd get to do this. I never ever thought when I decided to be a therapist that I would get to travel. That was actually one of the things that was like a concession where, because I was in sales and business before I went back to school to be a therapist. Because I can be very goal oriented, very goal focused, driven. When I set my mind on something, I'll push and grind to get it. So I did well in sales. So I thought, well, I could, I'll get one of those fancy jobs where they fly you around the world and send you to conferences and it'll be so cool. But then for me, I got into the corporate world and I was like, I feel like a number. I feel like I'm only as valuable as what I do for this company. They don't see my gifts. They don't see my soul. They don't see me. I didn't like that. And I thought it's not worth it. That's for me though, right? Some people feel like they can retain that and they can push that aside and just do that. Some people work just to finance their beautiful life, but I knew in my soul, and I've seen that. I've been told, I know through my astrology chart and all the different charts and things that like my work here is the primary thing in my life this time. It's like something I meant to bring forth into the world to share with others. So I just couldn't, and the closest thing I could think of to do to have a fulfilling career that was on the menu of, because we only have so much right now. I believe that as decades go on, there's going to be a new way of doing work, of being in the world where you can work in different capacities, different kinds of roles and ways that we, give to others. I think it's going to be more of like almost like a shared economy where just more people are just offering things to one another, just like exchanges and such, not as like title focused. Anyway, sorry, that's a little
I love
tangent.
it. I was all sucked in. I was like, yes, yes.
Yeah, I actually was told one time that I heard it was called a heart-based economy is what we're going to have. So it's more about love. Okay, well, what is this area needing? What does this need? How do we offer something? How do we receive? Very reciprocal, heart-based economy. So I like the ring of that. I'll take.
Absolutely. And you're not the only person I've heard that from. I have heard it from probably, gosh, if I do fast math in my head, at least 15 people.
We're all tuned into the same channel, or we got the
Yes.
same guides who are talking to us.
Yep. Like they're all, whether they're teachers or mentors or guru, like everyone is saying, there's going to be at some point a big shift and we go into more community, more bartering, more, that kind of thing. And so it'll be interesting to see when, because time's not real, but at the same time, it's like, when?
Right, we're still dying. Yeah, I know time's not real, but like, what can I
Yeah.
expect?
The
Yeah,
human part of me is like, 5 minutes. I don't have a lot of patience for myself and my I'm like, can we just get on with it? Um,
yeah, I hear you. It's funny because I do Women Waken, and I want to honor the traits of the divine feminine. However, I'm one of the least patient people you will ever meet. And patience is the beautiful virtue of the divine feminine who knows that you just allow for things to happen at their own time. But I'm like, okay, but it should be okay now. And can I just get it now? Can I do this now? If I work harder, I'll get it faster. Oh, brother, not patient. But we learn. That's a part of my growth. But yeah, so back to the working thing is that when I chose to be a therapist, I thought, okay, well, I'm not going to get to travel, but at least I can work for myself. One day I can open my own practice, which I thought would be way down the line. I saw myself as like, an older lady with fully gray hair, finally having her own office. But then the pandemic hit, and that was a gift, was that a therapist's private practice no longer looked like having to rent a space and get your couch and get your chairs and furnish it, which I was like, I am not going to do all that. It was just get your laptop and your table, baby, because that's all you need. And then all of a sudden I was like, I can travel. I could be a traveling therapist. Like,
yeah. And I love like I get goosebumps when you like say that as like not a title, but kind of like I'm your traveling therapist.
yes.
And, might be like, another podcast that just pops up and
Yeah.
you do little Instagram reels on once in a while and be like, your traveling therapist today says from New York. Here's 5 tidbits of how to change your life today.
Yeah.
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 I
So,
love
so
that
many
you're
different opportunities you can, and it's just awesome that like you can make things happen, you know, and that really showed me that anything really is possible. And but isn't it interesting? It's almost like once you believe in something or you see that it's possible, it will almost present itself to you.
Mhm.
And then it's kind of up to you whether you take it, right? I decided to take it and say, okay, I'll do that. I'll travel with it. I'll run with it. And everything has come together everywhere I've gone. People, and I'm big into the idea that most of the people that we connect with in a lifetime are the souls that we've connected with in other lifetimes. And everywhere I go, I'm like, I bet we've done this before. You know, I don't know you, but I remember you. I just know it. It's just so funny how that works. And I think that's also, I'm kind of being guided to reunite, because they also say when you reunite with those people, it's almost like checkpoints. You're like
Mhm.
allowing for whatever you guys agreed to share, and then you can move on. But think about how many people don't get to meet those soul connections because of their limiting beliefs about what life can be, right? No, 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 I can't. I really want to go do this trip to this place, but I can't figure it out. And I'm not criticizing people. We all have these, I mean, we have real life stuff, right? We have bills to pay, we have responsibilities, all that stuff. And we have families, and it makes it more difficult. I just hope that one day we create a world where we don't feel so locked in, as I said.
Yes, I agree. And it's one of those, like, one of the things um that you touched on, and there's two of these because I'm like, ooh, this and this that I think would really help people is we call it inspired action, right? So everybody gets intuitive hits, like, oh, I should go there, or oh, you have this desire inside, and you're like, I really want to do this, and then there's a whole visibility piece that everybody gets to work through. But as the human, our job then is to take the inspired action, because these things that you're talking about, things, it's not like we're just running out there and trying everything like that. I did that for years, where it's like, let me do everything that's possible that I think I'm supposed to do in life and take care of people and all these kind of things. And then you get exhausted because we're not being. And it's still a practice for me. Sometimes I slip into being a human doing instead of a human being. And I'm like,
Yeah.
dang it, I did it again. But when you get those intuitive hits, when you have that desire, when you're following the energy, the human's job is then to take the inspired action. It's an on purpose, conscious action, which is what you're doing. Like, you're very much doing that with the nobody. You're like, okay, I know I'm supposed to go here. That's the inspired action, is you get in the car and you drive there. The other thing that I think is really interesting is, particularly in the situation that you're in, is the ability to receive. So you're going to all of these places, right? And now this person pops up and has this apartment, or this other person. Like, your receiving is open to being able to do that. And that's really, like, for many people, receiving is a really, really big challenge, because most of the time in our world, it comes with a price tag. Even if people say, no, I'm freely doing this, there's a price later. And if anyone had any trauma around that, it's always a receiving is really challenging. And I love that you're like, go, this person has this thing. And you're like, great. For everyone else, like, I think one of the challenges would be the receiving, like, oh, but they offer that. But like, is it really, like, there's that fear? And like you talk about, it's the limiting in beliefs, or where are we doing it to ourselves? And you are really showing people that it's possible to have both.
Yeah. Well, I think it does take time to recognize what it means to have a reciprocal relationship with life. That it's okay to receive. In fact, it's necessary. And just as you said, I think people, as they say, look a gift horse in the mouth, which is such a weird phrase. I don't know who came up with it. Like, but I guess like if someone gifts you a horse and you just are like, I don't know if I can take that. Sorry. Um, but it's when you are giving of yourself, because basically when you go on a spiritual path, like for me, I'm I feel that I've been drawn to do this because not only where I go, am I offered and given what I need, but I'm also giving myself to my space. I'm very open with my energy. I'm very giving of it, and I bring something everywhere I go. So I trust that it's okay. Whatever comes to me is also, it's just reciprocation. It's a gift for me. But let me tell you though, not everything I've received has been good. And that's another crazy tenet to the spiritual path, is like I was saying before, things that we would label as awful and like, gosh, what a terrible thing to happen. It was still a gift. There's a phrase I love that says, speaking from the divine is saying, everyone you meet is an angel and everything you receive is a blessing. So even though things, like for example, I came all the way out here and started dating somebody and I was like, oh, what a gift, like a nice person. Well, they totally screwed me over and
Mm.
were treating me terribly and then just disappeared on me. And I thought, what the heck? Why this? Like, this is what you brought me here for? However, I realized that something about that event like hit something in my soul that said it was like kind of breaking a final core false belief about my self-worth that really like just I was done with tolerating anything less than I deserve. And I had to have that happen. So was it unpleasant? Yeah. Did it send me for a tailspin for a while? Yes. However, you come out of it stronger, more attuned, more aware, more open to what you really deserve. So giving and receiving is an interesting thing because it's not always what we think. It's not just like loving, like a massage circle where everyone's just, it's, we give a gift that might be harsh to the recipient, but ends up being good. And we receive things from others that might not look like a gift, but it is.
Right. Well said. It's absolutely true. Because so many people think, particularly if you're on your spiritual path or any of that, where it's like, oh no, I'm not supposed to have any more challenges, or it's not supposed to be hard, or bad stuff, quote unquote, bad stuff isn't supposed to happen to me anymore. And I was like, oh, sweet child, like you've just begun. Just like, because you've now stepped on a different timeline. You've now stepped to a higher level where I love you use the word evolve. It's like, we're not just evolving our human self. When we are on our spiritual path, we're evolving our soul, like you said. And so we get lessons that break things open, that rock us to our core. And sometimes if we are able to be like, okay, I know I'm in the middle of this. This is a gift. This is great. I'm seeing this about myself. And then sometimes we can't see that until the end because, the hill on the roller coaster was just too big at that moment.
Yeah.
And so it's where we look back and we go, oh, I didn't see that I still had this or that. And because I forget this part all the time too, it's like, like you were talking about, what is the gift we actually gave to them? Right. If we were showing up for ourselves, or there's a person that I have a new friend where it's like, I say things now and I am not that person that just says things. Like I always pause. And someone reflected back to me like, yeah, but what a gift it is to him that you're saying things because nobody says anything to him when these things happen. And
Yeah.
I'm not like a jerk about it, but I'm like, what are we doing here? What is this? And so it's that place of even using your voice can be a gift for someone else, even though it feels horribly uncomfortable for you, where you're like, this isn't my normal. And it's like, yeah, but now they have the ability to do that to change also.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think your voice is never lost. And also, love offered is never wasted. That was, I did an episode about that because like after the experience I described, for a while I was just in frustration and anger, but then I realized, but you did offer a beautiful gift to this person. They threw it away and didn't know how to thank you for it and acknowledge it at the time. But that doesn't take away what you did. You gave that person, you were kind, you were loving, you were nurturing to another soul, and it won't be forgotten and it wasn't lost on them. And that was what I kind of talked about. And for anyone listening, sometimes it can feel that way like, gosh, that person didn't even see you. Like how much I just wanted to be kind and loving towards them. I would encourage you to consider that don't assume that they didn't feel it just because they didn't know. If someone doesn't know much about receiving love, they're not going to know how to thank you for it. But the soul recognizes it and the soul gets to grow and open a little bit in this physical world when somebody else is kind enough to speak and attune to that someone's heart, right? So it's so important to remember that you do give something to everyone you meet, and it is a gift. It really is, just as everybody that you meet is a gift, offering you a gift. And that has helped me through some of the harder times because I do sometimes I throw hissy fits and I'm like, what the heck is this? Why did this happen? Am I lost? Am I off course? Am I cursed? What's going on? But then you remember that on a soul level, you can't understand it. And also, there's the idea that we don't intentionally, we don't remember what our soul decided before it came to earth. Our souls come here with very specific plans for
Yep.
everything that happens and why and what they're looking to attain. But it's so funny because you come to earth and the soul has a whole bigger view. It has a divine soul purpose, and we come to earth and only have a physical purpose in terms of, okay, I want to be the best looking, the most successful, the most liked. I want to be safe all the time. I want only good things to happen to me. Okay, thank you. And then we decide that if that happens, then we're good. Then we've got the good life. But our soul is like, no, I need some grit. I need some challenges. I need this, that, and the other thing. So it's funny because and I think that's the surrender of the divine soul path. The spiritual path is realizing, I have to trust that these things that happened to me were what I desired from a soul level. And here's another thing, whoever needs to hear this. One of the hardest challenges of my life was to release the grief I felt for not getting what I thought I was supposed to have, and for receiving or experiencing what I could not comprehend why I would have experienced that. Because at a soul level, it's always important, and always, nothing is ever by mistake, I believe. And I know that that's hard for some people to hear because some things can be so devastating or atrocious that we can't really understand how that could be of value or purpose.
And that's absolutely true. Like that's one of the things I meet people and they're like, they've had some horrific trauma and I'm like, I get it, and our soul, everyone knows I make the joke of I'm pretty sure I was drunk when I signed all my soul contracts. Like I'm pretty
Oh,
sure it
yeah,
was
I want two of these.
vodka. Yeah,
That'll be great.
not water. I was like, I'll be fine. I'll be fine. Because, with 5 traumatic brain injuries. And here's the thing, like where I am now, like I wouldn't trade any of it. And am I still have spent like, yes, my life is still significantly challenged by them, but I wouldn't trade it because having the life I had 10 years ago to what I have now, there's no way. And that by no means was any of it easy, or is it still easy? But I can't imagine not having the life that I have now, not being able to connect with amazing people like you and have my business and have my freedom. I was in a marriage that wasn't loving to either one of us. And I can't imagine still being there. And so when we have these things happen, it's like, yeah, our human experience is like, this is the worst ever. And then hopefully through our healing and our spiritual practice and being on our path, we get to a place where we go, oh, okay, yeah, and sometimes like I am stubborn and I am determined and I need hard lefts sometimes. And so the universe literally has to whack me in the head and be like, I told you 5 times. And
Yep.
so, but it's true, like you said, we all think like security and safety. And then when we don't get that, we think something's horribly wrong. And our soul's like, no, you came here to do more. You came here to do more. And we really get to honor, like you said, you had to grieve we call it, or I call it like grieving the dream of what could have been, like the potential. A lot of people struggle with that when a relationship ends. We're like, but because you could see all the things, we could be having this life. And so that's a separate grief process that goes on. And you went through that. And I love that you did it and you acknowledged it because it then puts that to the side so that it's not having the filter of you following your bliss that you're doing now.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I'll also say that um I think another, I mean, this is along the lines with our soul desires, but it's important to realize that everything we go through does, I know it's obnoxious here, but makes us stronger and solidifies something within us. And, again, during this year when I was going through that rough time and I was again kind of like shaking my fist, like, why is this happening? And I heard really clearly, I heard it's because you wanted to be an emotional warrior in this
Mhm.
life. And that makes sense to me because, one of my favorite things about myself is that, yeah, I'll fall down, but I get back up every time. And I feel like I've gotten to understand a lot of the human experience, not all of it, but a lot of it because of the brutal experiences I've had. And I wouldn't trade that. And if it means that I can make a difference in my time here, being an emotional warrior, I'd rather do that than have had, smooth sailing more so the whole way through.
I agree. There's so much, I was just like, oh, and there, because everyone knows I'm a feeler. Like I can feel all of the healing energy around you when you say those words. Like I can feel the work that you've done. I try not to get emotional. I can feel your passion in it. I can feel how true it is for you. And I love when I get to meet people who are doing the things to change this world. And you are one of those. And it's truly amazing when we get to come across beings who are doing that. So thank you for sharing all of that and really letting people know, like we said, it's not always easy. We have those moments where we're like, in the world, in this person, or you're like, I've already healed this. Why is this back?
Oh my gosh, don't know.
You want to say a little something about that?
Is it just that, oh my gosh, like this again, really? The
Yeah.
father wound, I've addressed it 10 times and I have another round. It's still not healed. Oh goodness. And I think a lot of it is that those wounds run deep. It goes past beyond just this lifetime. So another thing we tend to do is we think that everything, all our hangups and challenges are just from this one life, but it's our soul's history.
Mhm.
There's something called the Akashic Records. I'm sure you're familiar with, and sort of the library of our soul's emotional experiences. And I don't know if you keep all of them with you with each lifetime, but definitely beyond just this one life, I think. So it's important to remember that this is what I've decided, because I get that frustrated with like the same freaking lesson again. If you keep getting the same lesson, it's because your soul is like, no, we're getting it this time. In this lifetime, we're leaving it behind. So, girls, saddle up. And yeah, you're going to have another douchebag come and try to court you and hurt you, but it's okay because you're getting down to the very bottom of that wound, getting all the infection out so it can finally heal and no more of this crap going forward.
Yes, absolutely. Like it's layers and but I know
Right.
it's one we all struggle where we're like, hey, but I did this. I've been working on this for 10 years. Why is it back? And so, yeah, and you're right. There are times where it comes and it's like, no, this lifetime, we're done. Like this is, and for me, this particular lifetime, I've had like, I think I have a lot of those where it's like, nope, we are ending a lot of things. Like we are not, and we're not taking this forward. And I don't think I'm the only one that's having that experience on Earth this time around. That's why we're having this huge awakening on the planet that we
Yeah.
have not had in a really long time. And so um, I think it's happening for a lot of people, which then everybody, is who are like, I don't know what this is, like what's happening. So I love that, there are spiritual teachers out there that can guide people along with, one of the things is our authenticity. Like my clients know, and I'm sure your patients and know, like, oh, I know the stuff she's going to teach me is real. She's lived through it and she's done it. And these tools or this mindset shift or this meditate, like it works because she's tested it in her own life through her own experiences. And I think it really can change the world and help a lot of people. And you're using your experiences to really be able to do that, which I think is beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we definitely need support and guidance at this time from one another who are on this same journey, because it can be so confusing and lonely because a lot of people are not on this journey. I know one of the greatest challenges for me is that I grew up in a family that's not very spiritually attuned and not open to this. So when I started opening to it, it was sort of just like, oh, that's Whitney's cute little idea. And Whitney's doing this thing. We don't really know what it is, but she likes to talk about it a lot. And it took a lot. That was one of my greatest challenges was sort of they call it cognitive dissonance, trying to hold two ideas at the same time. It's like, wait, I know that I meant to do this, but I also like but my parents and family don't get it and accept it. And but I can't stop doing it because they don't support it. So it's like, how do I, but then because then I would ask myself, am I crazy? Am I wrong? Is it stupid? Are these, pie in the sky ideas? But so deep down, it was like, no, I have to do this.
Yeah.
And it's more important than what my birth family supports or doesn't support based on their timeline and their path.
Yep.
So we need one another. And especially because the spiritual journey is not easy. And you go through times where you do think, one, I'm doing this wrong. So I've gone into a bad place. Something's got like, Mayday, Mayday, ship's going down. but also things like when you mentioned grief combined with you also spoke about like sort of just making peace with things that like don't work out for you, or your, what'd you say, like your story not getting the story you wanted or something like that.
Probably some, I don't know. This is all free. Like, that's why
Yeah.
we're recorded. So I'm like, I just say the things that they tell me to say. So,
It was along those lines. And I just want to say again, for whoever needs to hear it, is that I had to go through a 2-year grieving of a decision I made that in my mind, I felt ruined my life. And, or at least my life could have been 10 times better if I just not made this one choice. And I couldn't let it go for 2 years. And I didn't know what was happening with me. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I thought I was just being, maybe I was superficial. Maybe I was being selfish. Maybe I was being I didn't know what it was, but I could not let it go. And now that it finally has let go, I realized, as we are spoken of before, it's because it represented, like we were saying, getting that wound finally healed. It represented a devastation, a loss, a grief that I felt for probably hundreds of lifetimes. And I had to feel it to fully complete it. And I believe I really completed that in this lifetime. So that comes back to us needing to find each other, because it's so much easier when we do this together and say, hey, girl, you're going through it. You're navigating this final push to close this cycle. I got you. You're not crazy. It sucks, but you just keep getting through each day and you will get to the other side.
absolutely. Yeah. Because it's, spiritual journey, spiritual path is not for the faint hearted.
Mm-mm.
It is not. And if you didn't think you were a warrior going in, when you get in there, you're like, oh, this is how I become one. This is all right. This is how it works. Like this is, and when you're in it and you feel that your soul's pull, and you get just even a taste of like being in alignment beautifully with your soul, there's no other feeling like it. And you can't go back. Like it's a choice. There's always a choice, but it's also not a choice.
Yeah.
And um, and so that's what we're continually seeking, is that feeling. It's like, yep, we're in alignment. This feels good. And we're here having a human experience. We're bumping into other humans and other humans who are still asleep. And we're like, oh, and so, but it's that piece inside that you've spoken about where it's like, that's what, it's the dog pulling us forward. And
Yeah.
there's no feeling like it, and healing those wounds all the way to the core. Um, and I think there's so much sort of many of the things we talked about today, but also like so much in the change of our self identity, right? Humans are so much ground in of like, this is who I am. Like what we do for a living is who we are. And it's like, it's not. And so one of those things, right? There's the grief of that. Like when I was no longer able to be a wildlife biologist, one, because it's like who I am, like nature, the word, like it's part of who I am. But I really struggled with that. It was like, well, who am I now? And I'm not a wife anymore. And I'm not a horse owner anymore. And I'm not, all of my life crashed at the same time, which was beautifully chaotic. And I, you know, very much Phoenix moment. And, but the self identity, and through the things you've been talking about today, you've shown where it's like, yeah, I thought my life was going to look like this. And then it didn't. And I had to grieve that. And I had to grieve who I thought I was. And, but that doesn't end. Like our self identity, once you sort of wake up, it's always moving forward. It's always changing because we're remembering and finding all the other parts of ourselves as we go along
Yeah.
this path. And I love that you're doing that. And I love that you're talking about it. And you're really letting people know all the sides of it today, where you're like, it's not comfortable. There is grief. And there's this amazing part also. And who we are is going to continually change.
Yes, and to allow for that and to embrace it and celebrate it. And I do have to, kind of shout out to the name of my podcast. My work is Women Waken, and it's because just as you described when you said we're very attached to our roles. Well, those are externals. Well, that's a very masculine concept. And this is not men versus women, although I will say, if I'm, to be real, most men more so embody masculine tendencies and most females embody the feminine. Not, but we all kind of intermingle in a way, I would say. But we are, if you look around our world, we are a masculine dominated energy world, in that we 90% put our emphasis on what we can see, touch, taste, and feel, the externals, right? I am a therapist. I am a sister. I am a wife. I am this, I'm that, and the other thing. And just as you said, when people lose their rules, they feel like they lose themselves, which is crazy because our soul is infinite. And these things are these little minuscule things, but it just shows you it's all about what we decide, our beliefs. And we've just created this belief system around you are what you do. Doing is most important. How you do things is how people will perceive you. And that's what matters. If you are a hard worker, you'll be successful, you'll be respected. If you're attractive, people will like you more. You'll get a good partner. You'll be people, you'll be better. So we attach to these and we're stuck in this sort of masculine maze of trap that is, you better hope that you got dealt a good card or you do enough so that you are, and here's the biggest issue, so that you're worthy and you have value. But the feminine comes in and says, what are you guys even talking about? And of course it's you need both, right? That's why Women Awaken is about the balance, but it's just about saying, can we please open ourselves? Can women waken to their true natural gifts? And we can all begin to reintroduce them into our world so it balances out. Sometimes I say that masculine is like the hot water and feminine is the cold. And we have so much scalding hot water. We just need to introduce some coolness, the feminine in, so it can neutralize a bit. So the experience isn't so fired up. And because the feminine is about honoring what is above all else. That's what I love about the feminine the most, and that I think is the most crucial element that is missing, is that before we think about any kind of expansion or creation or innovation, make sure that what is being honored first and is flourishing first. We've run so far off kilter with the masculine that we just create with no consideration for the quality of existence or life of that which is. We've done that to the earth. We've done that to one another, to people, to places, to animals, everything. And if we don't, like again with Women Awaken, it's the idea of like, we need to introduce these back so there's a rebalancing. And then we can have a new experience of life where we're not so attached to our titles. Because you remember, that's all it is a title. And it can change. Change your hats. Do it. It's fun.
Yes. And I love the rebalancing that you're talking about. And because one of the things, we live in like you said, a masculine um, society. And for those of us that run our own business, like everything is action oriented, and that's the masculine.
Yeah.
And for me, I have a lot of masculine energy because, right, I worked in a male dominated, like it was all action, right? It was fire, like all these things, even though it was so much like a feeling for me also of being able to connect with nature. It's very action oriented. The business, it's task oriented. That's all masculine. And I run into a lot of women, whether they're friends or clients, where, I teach them, it's a practice for myself, or I talk to my friends where it's like, no, we get to be the girl. We get to be the woman because we're so, for people that are dating, they're used to planning the dates. They're used to making it all, organized. And it's like, and that, not that you don't plan dates for your men, like it's the balance thing we're talking about. It's like, but what if you just said, yes, I'd like to go on a date. And then you wait and see for the other person to show up. And that doesn't matter whether they're male, female, because everybody's got masculine, feminine energy, whatever,
Yeah.
gender identity you have. And it's the polarity that creates that attraction. And so when women, but because of this life, because of any trauma, because of any of the roles we've been told, this is what makes a good wife partner, da, 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 we step into that masculine so often. And it's like, nope, like just wait and allow that person to show up and see if they're going to be a match. Like, see if they meet you in the middle of the road versus running across the road and doing it all for them. And
How did you
uh,
know my tendencies?
oh no, that's totally me. Like that is my, it's like I am a recovering caretaker. So it's
Yeah.
like I practice like I'm gonna stand in the middle of the road, because the thing is you don't actually get to know that person if you're controlling and doing all the things. You get to know your version of them because you did all of it. But if you
Yeah.
stand in the middle and you go, I'm gonna watch. I've said the thing of like, yes, I'd love to do this, or nope, that doesn't work for me. And then you wait, which we already talked about how patient we are. That waiting to see who they are, because what if they don't show up the way we want them to? What if? And it's like, but that's the place of the receiving, right? Like that's the feminine where you stand in the middle of the road. You're like, I have made my request. I have said my thing. And now I'm going to wait. It's beautiful, it's amazing, and it's uncomfortable.
It's so uncomfortable. And I'm so glad you're bringing it up because that was exactly the lesson I had to learn this year, and a tendency that I did realize. And I figured this out with my therapist as I said out loud, I was like, I just grew up in a household where my like my dad never contributed to anything. So if my mom didn't do it all, nothing got done. So now, like you said, I'll be like, oh yeah, I'll just sit here while you plan the date. But then the slightest pause, and I'll be like, okay, well, I'll just go ahead and schedule it, and then I'll go ahead and do this. Well, I'll do
Yep.
the dishes too, and I'll do this because in my mind, it's like, well, I can't just wait because it won't happen. And that, just like you said, the discomfort of saying, even if they don't do it, even if they leave because they're irritated that I'm not doing it, that's all revealing everything I need to know about this person. So the feminine is very, I mean, it literally is the receptor, the receiver. And we've learned to be doers, to be the caretakers. And caretaking is very feminine as well, but caretaking knows that it's a disservice to the person you're caring for if you try to do everything for them. It's just being a part of a system. Caretaking is a system. Again, reciprocal, right? You do your part, you do what you can for somebody, but they still need to do what they can as well. But we've overstepped it because why? Because it's one of the few roles that we've been allowed to have for centuries, right? No, that's all you're good for. That's what else are you doing if you're not taking care of things and cooking things and keeping things, the house going? And we're moving out of that and we're saying, well, actually, I have other aspects to bring that are important. But the problem is that, again, in our masculine world, some of the most profound gifts of the feminine have been deemed useless and that we don't have time for that. We don't have time for that. What does that mean? Why did we go and get ourselves in such a big hurry for what? And it goes back to what I was saying, and that, so like, because look around our world, we've created everything, but we have no idea what to do with it in terms of to be respectful, to use it for the best cause for all. We live in this totally, just imbalanced world where some people live with all the things and some people live with nothing.
Yeah.
And if you take a step back, you realize that that is in no way functional or really honoring life. There's so much of life that we feel like we can't honor because we can't do it. Um, but again, I'm just such a believer, and it doesn't have to be this way. And I feel like I was born with that phrase, like looking around being like, I don't think we have to do it like this. And there are those of us who came to this world like that because whether you want to call us angels or aliens or whatever you want, we see things, we have the sight, and we say, I see something else is possible. And again, whoever needs to hear it, if you have that inkling, speak to it, write about it, talk about it. Nothing is weird. I promise you. Promise you. I believe in dragons, so take that for weird.
Funny because we didn't talk about this yesterday, but everyone in my audience who just heard you say that is losing their mind right now
What?
because um because Romeo, right, my new cat, he's actually a dragon.
Thank you. So I
So
think I think my dog's a dragon. I swear to God, we were dragons in a past life. I swear it's true.
yeah, and everyone, and even my woo woo people, they were like, "Ooh, that's out there," and I'm like, "Trust me, I know." I had three other people check when he showed up. I was like, "What? I don't." Hmm. And I had three other. They're like, "Nope, you're not wrong." I was like, "Okay."
You're like, I
And
see a cat, but I feel a dragon.
yeah. And Pip, he was in a cat body too. He wasn't a cat, but he was totally something else. So yeah, it's just funny. Like everyone listening, that was not planned. Like her and I did not have a conversation about dragons before. So it's funny that it just comes up. This is the second time I've been on a podcast or interviewing someone and the dragon thing came up.
It's coming through. It's coming
Oh,
through the collective right now. And I think it's
yeah.
because we absolutely were dragons or shared the planet with dragons. And now they're this like mythical creature. Nah.
Well, and you got to remember there's many worlds, there's many timelines, there's many, like today on this human planet right now, no, dragons aren't walking around. And this is one little tiny place in the massive universe.
Yes.
So, um, so no, I love that you said that. I just had to put that little disclaimer. It's like, listen, we didn't make that, like, we didn't plan that because all of my people are going to be like, um, so that was beautifully perfect. Thank you so, so much. And yeah, it's one of those where, like you said, this back to the divine feminine, one sentence that changed my life was someone told me, um, caretaking, like there's caring, but caretaking is caring plus responsibility. So the second you feel responsible for that person, it changes it to caretaking. And for those of you that are learning to pay attention to the energy, trust me, when you pay attention, caretaking has a specific energy. There's a specific place in your body where all of a sudden you're like, that doesn't feel so good, but you don't know why. And I love that this is the education piece about it, where it's like caring is free and open, but the second you feel responsible for them doing the thing, or you feel responsible for their reaction, their emotions, it's now caretaking. And it doesn't serve either one of you. So
No.
that's something I still practice and remember for myself, where it's like, oh, nope. And it's a feeling. I pay attention, or I'm like, oh, it slipped. All right, I got to back that up. That's not mine. I can care about them. Doesn't mean I've got to get in there with them in order to care about them. Like, I'm here. I love you. How can I support you? But I don't got to get in that because I can't help you when I'm in it with you. And
Yes,
so, um,
it can be
and
so difficult.
yeah, it is like that. We use the analogy of the pool. It's like, you can't help someone if you're in the pool with them. Like stand
Yeah.
on the side and be like, here's the pole, here's life preserver, here's the rope. I'm right here. If you get it now, you got two people drowning. Nobody's helping anybody. But we're taught that's what caring looks like.
Yeah. Self-sacrificing, they
Yes,
say, is
self-fixing, self-sacrifice. Let me do it for like we're taught that's what caring is. And it's like, but it's not.
it's not. It's
Yeah.
not. And we can't sacrifice ourselves because we matter just as much as the next person. So um I heard the phrase that betrayal of the self is betrayal nonetheless. And you can replace that with any word. Sacrificing a sacrifice, sacrificing the self is sacrifice nonetheless. Would you hurting yourself is just the same as hurting another because we're all one, right? So
Yeah.
again, it comes back to the reciprocation, the balance. Do only as much as you can to it, and when you're receiving it, what you need in return. When that is disrupted, you're hurting yourself, and that's not okay. The same as it's not balanced or okay to hurt another.
Beautifully said. Like you're just because we're not taught so much of like, we're like, oh no, you know, it's more important to give than receive. And it, why can't you do that for them? Like you can. And that's, like I have some criteria I run through in my head of like, okay, well, I physically can. I can physically go, like I could go, but what is the energetic or the emotional cost? I'm doing something that's out of alignment. And for me, I get sick and my health is like my number one. And so the universe made it very clear when I start to do stuff I'm not supposed to, I start to get sick. And I'm like, nope, I'm backing up because I am not willing to sacrifice my health.
Good.
And so it's one of those where it's like, but we struggle because it's like, oh, but I could go do it. Right. Like there's nothing that's preventing me from physically going to help my friend do this. But we
Mhm.
don't calculate in the energetic, the emotional, and the mental cost, the mental labor, the
Yeah.
energetic labor. And if we're doing it because, right, we should, what a good friend does, we think we're supposed to, all those things you spoke to, it actually costs us way more.
Yeah.
We're not always aware of that. And then
Yeah.
you're farther down the line and you're resentful and you're like, why is my relationship going crappy? Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, talk about a hard lesson to learn. It can be, and a hard thing to let go of is when we're used to, because also what you get out of that is you feel if you gain your worth and value from that, if you gain your identity from that, of being the one that's always
yeah,
giving more and saving everybody, it's hard to recognize that it's time to look at yourself and not always just be distracted by tending to others.
exactly. And when you start down that path of if you choose to change it, the people you've been caretaking, they usually have some hissy fits when you start to choose differently. So please, if anyone out there is listening to this and you are in that place, please get support.
Yeah.
Find Whitney, get some support in that because people will, they don't like that this source of so many things is now being taken away from them because one, they now have to grow up and be an adult and do the things for themselves and have their own experiences. It's easier to just have someone else do it for us. And um, it can make you doubt and waver on your path, even though inside you go, I have to do this or I'm not going to make it, whatever make you, I'm not saying leaving the planet, but like make it, you know, looks like for you. So please, please, please get support because it can be a challenging place when you start to shift those kind of things and people around you are not
They don't
the
like
same
it.
place
They
as you.
don't get it. They don't like it. And when people don't understand things, sometimes that's when they attack things.
Yeah.
And they will attack you if you're doing something that they deem to be selfish or reckless or irresponsible. Which, like, I will say though, like, that's why it's such a big part of our spiritual growth is tuning into ourselves and learning to go within and asking ourselves, is that true? How do I feel about this? Tapping into our own inner wisdom and guidance. Because again, it's like you got to find the eye of the storm because the world will keep storming. The storm's going to keep storming. It's going to keep happening. People will come around and yell at you and say, you're wrong, you're stupid, you're weird, you're this, you're that, you're all the things. And again, that's another thing we're taught in this world is you better watch out what people say about you because that's all that matters. If people don't like you, that there's something wrong with you, you have to let go of all that in the spiritual path. You have to let go of convention and people saying, just you said, like, oh, well, you're mean for doing this and you're bad because our instinct is to take that to heart and say, oh my
Mhm.
gosh, we got to know for ourselves, build that relationship with ourselves where we can say, wait a minute, I think that's your stuff, not mine. I think that's your fear, not mine. I know in my heart I have to make this choice, so I can't listen to all the noise of people dealing with their own stuff. And that's a true step forward in the spiritual journey is when you are so attuned with yourself that you can say, I'm confident enough that even though all these people disagree, I don't care. I know it feels right for me.
Yep. And that's uh like we talked about that feeling like that right there. Like that's just one of the foundational cornerstones of when you know you're on your path, when you're living your life's purpose. And I think that's a great place because I just looked at the time. I'm like, oh my gosh, I could talk to her forever. So should probably start to wrap up. Um, and I think that was a beautiful place to end that particular segment. So you got the cards? Okay, I was like, where are we going with this? Because I got some others. So all right,
We
hang
ready?
tight.
Okay,
Yep.
so now that we've unleashed, we've hatched our egg of conversation, let's see what wants to come through. Now the spirits heard everything we divulged and shared with the audience. What is the message for everybody listening for our highest good and greatest guidance? Ooh, okay. So it's reminding us of all the cards. So we got the 10 of swords. So it's really just affirming what we were talking about, which is that and I feel like this is coming through because at this moment in time on our planet for astrological reasons and because of the shift that's happening and the awakening that's happening, there so the 10 of swords is like the final blow that it's the end of a very hard cycle. And a lot of people are going through that right now. So a lot of people listening might be hearing what we just said and say, "Oh my gosh, I feel like I can't take another I can't take another blow. I can't take another hit." And this is saying the cycle is ending. So if you're experiencing that right now and you're like, I don't know what to do, the 10 of swords is not pleasant. You got the final sword in your back, the last blow. But guess what happens with the last blow? It's over. You're done. It's finished. The hard times, the challenge, the devastation, it's over. And then we move through the 10 of swords into a new place of liberation and freedom because we're done, just like we said. So I think this is confirmation that's like, it's offering to our audience that you are truly closing a cycle right now, as hard as it might be. Like, I think that came up in this conversation because it's illuminating and illustrating what so many people are experiencing right now. Is this just like really another one? But it's like, yeah, but it's the final one. This is really it. We're closing out cycles this time, you guys, really, truly. So hang in there. You can reach out to me. You can reach out to Alicia. You got support. You got people. You can do this. You got this.
Perfect. Perfect. I love how that wrapped up right there. I got the goosebumps. So I'm like,
Oh, good. This confirmation. They're like, ah.
I'm always like, and it's hot in this room. So just so you know, like it's not from AC or fan. I'm like, nope, it's not a biological response to the
Divine
temperature
tingles.
because it's hot in here. So please tell everyone where they can find you, how they can work with you, and
Well, my podcast is Women Waken, and you can find it on every outlet, Apple, Spotify, and all the rest. My website is womenwaken.com. If you find me on Instagram at Women Waken, if you add me on there and send me a message, I will do a card pool for you. I love to connect with my audience and people that find me and do a little reading for them, just a little mini one. And if you're interested in working together, you can email me, Whitney at Women Waken, or send me a message on Instagram. Either way works.
Beautiful. Perfect. Yes, because I really hope that people uh, who hear this go, oh, she's the energy, she's the match, she's who I've been waiting for. And so now they know where to go and
Hopefully.
find you. Yes. Well, thank you so much, Whitney. This has been a true pleasure. And I mean, just being able to connect with you in general. Thank you so much for coming on and talking to everybody today about your experience and your adventure and your life and the ups and downs and what it's like to be on the spiritual journey and still having a human experience on this planet and how to manage those two sides together. So thank you so much.
You're so welcome, Alicia. Thank you for having me on and for being a guest on my show. And I'm so glad to be connected.
I know. All right. Everyone who's listening, watching, thank you so much for attending and for listening at a later time. We will connect another time soon. All right. Thanks, everyone.